You want more FPS? I'll give you more FPS. We all know the truth here, frames win games. How can you win with only 120 FPS? You just can't. Simple fact. You absolutely have to at least have 250 FPS to win. Otherwise, you're just throwing. Alright, anyway, in all seriousness, I'm going to show you how you can all get more FPS in Overwatch 2 with these simple setting changes. These settings will also help reduce your system latency, so you no longer have an excuse to lose as would make a 1v1s. For starters, we're immediately going to jump into the video tab here in Overwatch and go through everything here. For display mode, I highly recommend using full screen for lowest input latency possible. Both windowed and windowed full screen have far worse performance in comparison. I don't care if you want to easily slide over to your second monitor, we only care about pure raw performance here, so suck it up or you have to win. For target display, usually best match works fine, but you can also force on to the monitor that you want to play with. I only have one, so the setting basically means nothing to me. For your resolution, I would highly recommend you select the correct corresponding resolution to what your monitor specs say. I'm still on 1080p, so that's why I've got it selected. If you're unsure what your monitor spec says, just Google your monitor or go into the system settings, display, and then advanced settings, and it'll show you what you've got. Also, remember to select the highest refresh rate available. Please also make sure you've gone and done that in the graphics card driver settings or just in the Windows settings as well to make sure that the highest available refresh rates will be properly utilized. I cannot tell you guys how many people made this mistake where they buy a higher refresh rate monitor, use it for a few months, and then later on they're like, oh my god, I can't believe it, I've been playing at 60 FPS this whole time, wow, I'm such a dummy. Yeah, it happens, trust me, it happens. For the field of view, you want to use this at 103, this way you have more visual information of what's happening around you. For an example, this is what the lowest setting looks like, and this is what 103 looks like. This way, you don't feel like everything is so close and zoomed in. Moving on to dynamic render scale, I would say it's best to keep this setting off. This way your in-game resolution doesn't keep changing, trying to keep a higher frame rate. This can cause some confusion and some crappy visuals, like it's 2023, we don't want to use 144p visuals. However, if you do have a really low end card and you're seriously struggling to get the FPS value of your refresh rate, even after all the settings that we're going to go through, then I would highly recommend giving this a try. For render scale, I would recommend using 98% or 99%. This way the resolution in the game is almost the same as the resolution of your monitor that is set to. This way we can make use of a specific graphic setting later that we'll go through. If you don't want to use that setting, then you can leave this at 100% if you want. Lowering the setting means lower visual quality, but can also increase performance. Going any higher than 100% just wouldn't make any sense. So maximum is 100%. If you're still struggling to reach the desired frame rate, lowering this to 80% or 75 can yield big FPS increases. I would first prefer to do this before doing the dynamic render scale as well. This way it's far more consistent in game. For the maximum refresh rate, I usually leave this capped at maximum, which is 600. Even my RTX 2070 Super and the Ryzen 7 7800 X3D, while streaming and recording, I can hit frame rates above my monitor's refresh rate. I'll explain why later in the video. If you struggle to get a high frame rate, I'd recommend capping this frame rate at just above your average frame rate for the smoothest experience for you. Triple buffering off for the lowest input lag, reduce buffering on as well for lower input lag. If you have an Nvidia card that is a GTX 900 series card or newer, then you can use either enabled or enabled plus boost, whichever one your GPU is capable of. This drastically reduces system latency, making everything feel far more snappy. Okay, basically it just forces the PC to prioritize low system latency, which is exactly what we want. You can ignore the rest on this tab. We can now move on to graphics quality. To start off, let's set the preset to low so we have a nice baseline to start from. At the lowest setting, obviously everything will be the highest performance, but we're going to change a few things here and there for better visual quality, where the impact on frames is basically negligible. Alright, so to start, we have high quality upsampling. I use AMD FSR 1.0 at 100%. I basically see no difference in FPS with it on or off, and I find it has a big impact on visual clarity, so I max this out. It, however, does not work with 100% render scale, so that's why I said earlier I use 98%. If you prefer the setting off or on default, then just go ahead and use 100% render scale. For texture quality, I'd recommend using low for maximum FPS gains, but I will be using medium because I want a little bit more pretty in my game, and my FPS doesn't take much of a hit, so it's all good. For texture filtering quality, this sharpens edges that are further away on your screen. It uses your VRAM capacity, so if you're using a card with a high enough VRAM amount, say above 8 GB, you can just go ahead and max this out with basically no FPS hit at all. If you don't have that much VRAM capacity, then lowering the setting would also be a good idea. Local fog detail, low. Fog that disrupts view is a no-no. Moving on. Dynamic reflections off, no need for that. It looks great but has a big performance hit. Shadow detail off if you want maximum performance, low if you want at least the competitive information that someone might be above you or around a corner. Model detail must be at the lowest setting, otherwise you have a bigger impact on performance, and on top of that you'll have additional objects on your screen that other people don't see. This can can lead to a massive competitive disadvantage. For example, on Blizzard World, if you have model detail on anything above low, you'll have these balloons that can obstruct your view. Then your opponent who has that off will be able to see you through those balloons. Effects detail, I use low because I want less visual clutter, but if you want to at least see bullet impacts and stuff, I would say you can have it on medium for not that big of an impact. Lighting quality, low, no need for better lighting quality. It won't be a big FPS increase, but it can help. Next up we have anti-alias quality. I have this off because I don't generally pay attention to edges on objects much. I just generally go around trying to win team fights. Anything higher will have an impact on performance, so best to keep this low and adjust that where you have headroom should you have the one to do so. Refraction quality, low. Having images be distorted through glasses to me is a no-no. Screenshot quality doesn't matter. Ambient occlusion off for best performance. It gives the environment soft shadows and realistic lighting. I'd recommend keeping this off if you don't really care so much about lighting and shadows, but rather want the best performance. Local reflections off. This is the reflections of mirrors and shiny surfaces like windows and stuff. No need to have this on. This setting is mainly preference though, so it's whatever you prefer. Finally, damage effects. This is the effect that comes on screen when you're being shot at by opponents. Default is fine, but it's more about preference. Alright, now if you actually want to see your FPS and stuff in game, in the details tab you'll need to turn these settings on. Turn on display performance stats. I would recommend just having frame rate, GPU temp, latency, and network interpolation delay, and then your clock. You can choose whatever you want here though, it's honestly up to you. Let's quickly go over some sound settings and one other setting, and then we'll move on to the Nvidia driver settings. Firstly, I'd recommend having a spatial audio set to Dolby Atmos for headphones, and then either the headphones audio mix or studio reference. Everything else here is personal preference. In controls, here in general, you'll see hero, have allied health bar set to default, and have show friendly outlines set to always. Alright, now lastly, we're going to go over the Nvidia driver settings. I'm going to run through this quickly though, without much explanation. If you want to know more, just read the little description it gives when hovering over the option. These are the settings I would recommend for the best performance. I will only be going over the Nvidia driver settings because I only have an Nvidia card. To start, you'll need to open up the Nvidia Control Panel. To do this, click on the arrow at the bottom right of your screen, then right click on the Nvidia icon, and then click on Nvidia Control Panel. Firstly, here at display, make sure your resolution is the best for your monitor, and then select the highest available refresh rate. I would also highly recommend using this setting for best color settings. Make sure to click apply. Adding some digital vibrance can also be quite nice as well here in the adjust desktop color settings section. Again, click apply. Moving on, we will head into the manage 3D settings. Then click on program settings next to global settings. Click on add and then select the Overwatch application. Image scaling on, anisotropic filtering off, anti-aliasing FXAA off, gamma correction off, anti-aliasing mode off, transparency off, background application max frame rate off or whatever you want, CUDA GPUs all, low latency mode ultra, multi-frame sampled AA off, OpenGL GDI compatibility auto, OpenGL rendering GPU auto, power management mode, prefer maximum performance, preferred refresh rate highest available, texture filtering, anisotropic sampling optimization on, negative LOD bias allow, quality high performance, trilinear optimization on, threaded optimization on, triple buffering off, vertical sync off. The VR ones don't matter. Vulkan OpenGL preset method auto. Alright, cool, hit apply, and then you're done. Oh, also, if you want even better FPS, I would highly recommend using ReviOS. It's basically just a debloated, stripped down version of Windows and drastically improves performance of Windows itself and games. I'll leave a link in the description to a video on ReviOS. Alright, awesome. That's it, everyone. I hope these settings help a lot. If it did, just leave a like. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. If you have anything else to add, please feel free to do so in the comment section. Go ahead and click on the video on the end screen. YouTube thinks you'll enjoy it, and so do I. Alright, anyway, take care, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.